Hi, everyone. I am moving on with the Beatles series, and as usual, I don't know what's in front of me. I don't know what I'm going to be listening to, so it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll try to remember to play some guessing games along the way, but I'm in good company. I'm accompanied by my trusty Beatle tea. I feel like taking it a step further today and saying Beetlejuice. You know, we could respell it a little bit, and since the Beatles respelt their name. Anyway, take it or leave it. Let's get started listening and see where we go from there.
In the town where I was born.
I like it. I like it. So that is the Yellow Submarine that you all have been talking about all this time. It is utterly charming, delightful, cute, playful. It's colorful. It's colorful. I'm so glad that they included the word yellow. We all live in a yellow submarine because the music has this sort of bright children's playfulness to it, like almost like it's comes from a playground or a kids coloring book or
Made a cartoon for kids, Yellow Submarine.
it fits perfectly. I was just getting ready to say that this takes the whole idea of painting the text a step further, almost to the point of it becoming like a movie soundtrack because of all the sound effects and everything thrown in the mix. And I was literally just ready to say those words when you told me that. So, okay, this is going to be fun. Let's go back through and listen.
Who wrote it?
Who wrote it? Oh, I am going to guess John Lennon, but I could be wrong. It just strikes me as the type of, quirky humor that Lennon would pull out of his back
It's
pocket.
Lennon McCartney.
It's Lennon McCartney. Okay.
Who's singing?
I was debating that as I was listening because I knew you were going to ask me that question. And I was vacillating between Lennon or McCartney. If it's Lennon, it's a very mellow Lennon. If it's McCartney, it's I guess I'm tending a bit more towards McCartney just because, but it could be Lennon actually. It could be Lennon, but his voice is a little more mellow. If it's neither of those two, well, I don't know the other two voices enough to really identify them.
It's
So
Ringo.
is okay. So have I ever heard Ringo sing anything? Okay, that explains it. So now I get to know Ringo's voice. I'm going to try to stick this in my ears because does he ever sing anything else? Anyway, I've got to remember this because if his voice comes back solo, I want to be able to pick it out. And well, that explains why I couldn't pinpoint either of the two primary singers of the band. Okay.
And the title is obvious.
Of course, and not only because it's all through the song, but also because so many of you have been commenting about this thing. I can't wait to get to Yellow Submarine. Or Yellow Submarine is one not to be missed. So it was obvious. Can't really call it a guess. Now let me read a little bit more about the background, and maybe I'll recall some of what you have said along the way as well. Although you've been pretty good at not spoiling the fun for me along the way. So let's see what I have to read, and then we'll go back and listen. Of course, we're at number 61 in the 150 series. The genre is considered psychedelic rock, according to the official Beatles website. And the lead vocals are by Ringo Starr. Yay! Ringo Starr is the star. Lennon said, "Yeah, I seem to remember, like, the submarine, the chorus bit, you coming in with it." To which Paul agreed, "Yeah." John then asked Paul, "And wasn't the other bit something that I had already going and we put them together?" Paul answered, "Well, yeah, right, yeah." John then added, "And it made sense to make it into with Ringo in mind." Sounds kind of like somehow. I don't know Ringo's personality very well. All I know is that he's a great drummer, and I love what he does with the percussion in all of this. And sometimes he does joins with the backing vocals here and there. But I really don't have a sense of his personality yet. But clearly they all did, of course, and it seems like they just knew that this was one for Ringo to take up. Talking about the writing of the song, Paul explains in his 1997 book, Many Years From Now, "I was laying in bed in the Asher's garret, and there's a nice twilight zone, just as you're drifting into sleep and as you wake from it. I always find it quite a comfortable zone. You're almost asleep. You've laid your burdens down for the day, and there's this little limbo land just before you slip into sleep. I remember thinking that a children's song would be quite a good idea, and I thought of images, and the color yellow came to me, and a submarine came to me. And I thought, well, that's kind of nice, like a toy, very childish yellow submarine." The song inspired the 1968 United Artists animated film Yellow Submarine, which was produced by King Features Syndicate, the company behind the popular children's TV series The Beatles. The single went to #1 on charts in the United Kingdom and several other European countries, and in Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. It won an Ivor Novello Award for the highest certified sales of any single written by a British songwriter and issued in the UK in 1966. In the US, the song peaked at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart and #1 on the Cashbox Top 100 chart. Well, that's interesting because as I was listening, I thought that the lyrics were more like John's sort of imaginative, childlike fun, humor, cartoony character coming out. But it seems like really the seed for the song, the idea came to Paul. Well, as you know, I've kind of started thinking of Paul as the nice guy. And as much as I was tending toward John, now that I know this, I can go back and rethink and say, well, it makes sense because it is a very sweet song and it doesn't have a lot of acerbic qualities to it. It is simply a sweet, warm memories, child's imaginative world kind of playful song. So yes, I can see how it could totally be Paul's imagination that started it off. There is still something about it that feels like John to me, so it's nice to know that at least he had a hand in the creation. All right, well, let's go back, and I am so eager to listen to this again.
In the town where I was born.
Okay, so that is Ringo singing. I think his voice suits the whole song. It starts out, I kind of like these first 3 notes. In the town, and it holds for a lot longer than we might expect. I mean, even as I'm just singing through, if I were listening to this and then singing it as a kid's song, I would probably go, in the town where I was born, I lived a man who sailed the sea. And there's a bit more movement, but it truncates everything. And basically what they've done is they've created a tune that sounds kind of like a kid's song. In the town where I was born, lived a man who sailed the sea. But then they extend some of the lines, and it becomes different. It becomes very retrospective.
In the town where I was born.
And it gets much more of a sort of storytelling quality. In the town where I was born, lived a man who sailed the sea. And immediately we get the idea that, okay, this is This is someone telling a story of their childhood, and it sounds kind of like he's getting ready to tell it to children. Maybe it's Grandpa telling about when he was a kid. In the town where I was born lived a man who sailed the sea. Ah, he sailed the sea. Ah, a sailor.
Who sailed to sea.
Oh, but hold on. In the land of submarines, it can't be that old of a grandpa if we're talking about submarines. But anyway, we don't really care right now. Whoever it is telling about when he was a boy, when he was a child. Well, it never really says it's a he or a she, but it's a male voice, so I kind of think of he telling when he was a kid. Oh, there was a man in town who not only sailed the sea, but he used to tell us kids of his stories of adventures. And he had sailed a submarine. Oh, wow. The magic of the underworld. And this is where it started me thinking of actually something like Queen's Seven Seas of Rye. Because what comes next is this sort of fantasy, imaginative,
Of submarines.
of course, all the surf sound behind enhances in it, and it makes it start to feel like, I don't know how many of you listened to those little old mini records of narrated stories when you were kids. I did. We had some little miniature records that would have a single story on it with sound effects, and whoever was narrating it was kind of dramatic, and then you would hear stuff in the background happening, and we thought those were great. They would just spark our imagination, and we would see the whole story in front of us. This has a bit of that kind of dramatic storytelling quality, because now we're hearing some of the sound effects, and throughout the rest of the song, we get to hear different sound clips of what's happening or what's being talked about, and it brings everything to life in a new way. Okay, back to the lyrics before I dive into the music. As I said, this reminds me a bit of the Seven Seas of Rye. Perhaps this was maybe even an inspiration for Queen when they put that one out. We sailed up to the sun. Up to the sun. What an image. I don't think that it's talking about flying. It's sailing. We're on the sea. We sailed up to the sun, where the sun sets, where the sun meets the sea. We sailed up to the sun till we found a sea of green, and then somehow we become submerged. We lived beneath the waves in our yellow submarine, and that's the moment we get the color yellow. So we've got the sea of green, we've got the sun, also colorful yellow, and then we get the our yellow submarine. It's a colorful kind of primary colors, not quite primary. We've got green, but it feels like this kids playground. And I get the feeling that this is kind of, it's not so much about the old man who sailed in a submarine in town, the man who lived there. It's not so much about what he told, but it's about the fact that, and it doesn't, we could say, all right, so he took us out on his boat, whatever, but I don't think so. To my mind, to my imagination, as I was listening to this the first time through and kind of piecing the bits together, I got the idea that this is a group of kids inspired by, their imaginations are sparked by the stories they've heard this guy tell them. And so they get together and they say, let's go sailing on a submarine. And they get whatever, I don't know, barrels, boxes, pillows, blankets, whatever it is they're going to play with, indoors, outdoors, it doesn't matter. You know, the classic childhood props. And they set sail. Everything about this makes me think that it is children's imaginative play. Even simple things like, till we found a sea of green. The idea we're sailing and sailing, and we lived beneath the waves. How are you sailing on top and then living beneath? It doesn't make sense. There's another spot which caught my attention the first time through. I guess it was towards the end, where it's talking about, oh, we've been living in a submarine all this time and hearing all the life of life aboard the submarine. And then suddenly it says something about, oh, let's see, I have the lyrics here, I can find it. Every one of us had all we need, sky of blue and sea of green. Sky of blue? We're in a submarine. Come on. It's the illogical, not quite realistic, but incredibly brilliant, imaginative world of children at play. And that's what I love about this piece. Well, one of the things I love. Okay, now, before I start talking about the music, I want us to move just into the refrain a bit here.
A yellow submarine.
Doesn't that sound like a playground chant? We all live in a yellow submarine, yellow submarine, yellow submarine. It could be, you know, it's kind of like, I don't remember which video it was. Oh, it was a completely different one. Different artist, everything. But something made me recall this annoying children's tune. The wheels on the bus go round and round, round and round, round and round. It's kind of that type of chant. We all live in a yellow submarine. And the chorus here really enhances that. Although these are adult voices, but you can just imagine a playground full of kids shouting, laughing, playing, climbing on the playground furniture, equipment. We all live in a yellow submarine. It's so vivid in my mind. Okay, now let's talk about the music, because this is a contrast that I noticed. At the beginning, we start with an anacrusis, a pickup, where, and I noticed right away that it's unaccompanied. It's the lonely voice coming in on its own, and then the instruments join in the downbeat. For someone who's hasn't done a lot of solo singing in the band, at least on recording, I guess Ringo was kind of brave to dare to dive in unaccompanied. In the town where I was born. But this entire verse, if we look, is built around this idea of accompaniment, of pickup. In the town where I was born lived a man who sailed the sea, and he told us of his life. So every phrase, every fragment of a phrase is before the beat and arrives on the beat. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And it gives this sort of rocking, lilting motion, or you could even say a little bit like the waves rising and falling, or even a boat rising and falling on the waves. Up, down, up, down. You get that feeling of a little bit of motion. Also, another nice thing to notice is that harmonically we have the same scheme, the same pattern. Let's just change the color a bit. If we look at the chords, you see there's a chord marked here. There's a chord marked here and another one marked here. This is what comes immediately after that blue line is the downbeat. For those of you who don't read music, at least you can follow along what I'm saying here. So we have in the town, here's our downbeat, where I was born, lived a man who sailed the sea. And I'm putting arrows on the chord that arrives on the downbeat. But notice on that anacrusis, on that pickup, on the syllables and the notes that come before the downbeat, there is also a chord. So harmonically, chordally, rhythmically, we're not just dealing with the poetic, the lyrical rhythm. We're not just dealing with the melodic rhythm. We're not just dealing with whatever percussion is happening underneath. We're also dealing with what we call the harmonic rhythm, the rhythm at which the harmonies change, the chords arrive underneath everything. And if we scan through here, and I don't expect you to be able to read the score as rapidly as me, but we see the same pattern every single bit of the way through the verse. It's baked in to this verse. Why do I make such a big deal about it? Well, let's go to the chorus. This is where it gets extra fun. What do we notice, first of all? This is the line which indicates after that comes the downbeat. So this is our first strong beat. Now, do we see any lyrics, any notes before the downbeat in the chorus? No, we don't. So this chorus, this refrain, is suddenly a completely different scheme, a completely different pattern than the verse. Instead of dum ba bum da da ba bum, it's bum 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 da 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 dum da 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 dum da 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 dum. And it's one of the things that gives it that feeling of a playground chant. Let's see. Well, think of it this way. You get a bunch of kids singing together, playing together, moving together, and it's going to be an incredibly simple, we could even say simplistic type of music making. And what we get here in this refrain is exactly that. Very simple, even simplistic if you want to call it that. Starting on the downbeat, very straight, simple, not a lot happening melodically. In fact, I'm going to take us to the piano here because I think it'll be a lot of fun to play this around. It is written in the key of G flat. I'm going to play in the key of G just to keep things accessible if you want to play along. So just pretend there are no flats on the page. We're going to start on the G chord, B and D. In fact, I'll just play the D, the melody. You can imagine even a very unimaginative, not highly skilled, but, good-hearted kindergarten or daycare supervisor who can bang out a few notes on the piano, getting the children around and saying, all right, let's play a few tunes, and they can bang out this. It has that feel of so rudimentary, so elementary. I'll tell you what I love about it, though, is the lower voice. It has a little more movement, doesn't it? And when you put them together, we end up with this nice feeling of a little bit of extra kind of below the surface movement coming out, which is actually nice with the idea of a submarine, motion underwater beneath the top note. So we've got something like this. And you can hear that lower voice really filling it out and giving that sort of up and down motion underwater, which is a lot of fun. Okay, back to my harmonic point here. This refrain has only one chord per bar. I marked the first one. Here's the next one. And it only happens on the downbeat. Now, if we look quickly and compare that to what we had before, it's very different, isn't it? We have this pickup, and the chords are going to be changing. If I take where I was born, we have a C chord, where I was born. And you've got two chords there. But here we have, we all live in a yellow submarine. My point is that this chorus, this refrain, is such a great, we could even say parody, mimicry, but it's not mimicry, it's not parody. It is exactly what a simple children's chorus does and is. We have the straight, simple harmonies, we have the chant-like rhythm, and everything is so, even the range is quite limited for children's voices, and it just fits so well that way and makes a wonderful contrast to the more rising, falling imagination, world of imagination, and storytelling feel of the verse. And so much of that contrast in feel has to do with the way the melody is created, the design of it, and the way it is supported by the harmonic rhythm and structure. And they nailed it. And that's one of the things that makes this work so well, so vividly in our imagination and musical experience. So, of course, this all comes back, so I won't back up a whole lot, but as we listen again, we're going to stay aware of this and at the same time, listen out for what comes next.
Submarine, yellow submarine.
The storytelling background sounds. This is a friend's party. We hear clinking glasses. We hear chatter. We hear all of this, all aboard. Again, how do we get our friends all aboard? In our imagination, of course. It has to be, these are the kids just building a world in their imagination, which is why it kind of makes me think of the Seven Seas of Rye, because that also, it's more fantastical in a way, but still, this is clearly not real. This is clearly not realistic happenings and events here.
Many more of them.
Right, in this line, many more of them live next door. In a yellow submarine. Hold on, we've got two submarines. It doesn't matter, we don't care. This is just fun.
And the band.
Like a school march, like a school band doing their little march practice. It's a little bit sloppy, messy, not professional, and well, of course, it's all part of the imaginative world, but at the same time, it has such a feeling of it could be real, which isn't that how it is when you're a kid and you're building all these imaginary worlds around you and in your life. You draw on what you know and what you experience. The band. Okay. We've got to have music. Let's have a band. Well, my big brother plays in the school band, so that's the sound that's in my ears as I build this whole story in my life.
We all live.
Okay, I've hardly talked about the instruments themselves. Why? Because I'm so taken with the story, the beautiful expression of childhood experience that I find in this piece of music. Let's talk about the instruments for a minute, because they are doing such a great job of supporting this story and at the same time staying out of the way of it. It's kind of like, the kids need the playground, they need their bedroom, they need a few little props, pillows, blankets, they'll go grab a pan and some drum and some sticks from the backyard to make their little pretend marching band, all the rest. Oh, it reminds me of Robert Louis Stevenson's little poem about the march. Let's see if I can remember that. It starts, "Bring the comb and play upon it. Marching, here we come. Willie Cox's Highland bonnet. Was it Johnny beats the drum?" Again, a great portrayal of child play. And, well, this is what we've got here.
We all live in a year.
And these little stick, tick, tick, tick sounds, they add to the whole idea of, okay, the Beatles are actually the ones playing this. But what they're doing is they're adding elements that are exactly what kids would do. They don't have a real drum set. They don't have a real guitar. They just go tick, 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 whatever they've got at hand to add to the atmosphere they're going to use. And that's what it feels like to me here.
Yellow submarine, yellow submarine.
I love the guitar and the drums keep going in the background. So it's as if the music keeps going. And the music becomes the symbol of the child's imagination. And they're serving that role so well. They're filling that role so well. It is the representation of what a child imagines. And so this full steam ahead and all these noises and stuff, we understand that they're not really happening. We understand that because the music is still playing. And I guess this also, I wanted to point that out in the march bit too. I think the instruments kept going there as well. Again, it's all happening in the children's minds. And this, okay, couple things here. As we live a life of ease, this is now the adult who started out saying, "In a town where I was born, lived a man." This is the adult telling the story, and he recognizes that, oh man, childhood was just a dream. We didn't have to worry about a thing. We lived a life of ease. It's not just that we're living a life of ease in this imaginary submarine world, but we, as children, we were living the life. And that comes through in that life of ease. I also love these little echoes of the voice of the song, which is coming in here. And it sounds like it's simply echoing the lyrics, but it sounds like somebody is calling out, calling out commands. Which one of them is doing this, I wonder?
That's all we need.
So English, the way that the way that he pronounces yellow there. All right, I've got a guess. I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to say this is probably Lennon doing that fooling around in the back. You all can tell me if I'm right or wrong. But it looks like, it sounds like something Lennon would do. He's like, okay, let's just spice this up a little bit.
That's all we need.
And as it fades out here, well, even in this last chorus here, it feels like something has been added. The sound is fuller. It's as if it's kind of the summing up of the whole story, the whole world back then, as we lived in this yellow submarine and we just lived the life and we were kids, and it's the whole chorus of all the childhood memories joining together in this last bit. I like what's happening in the drums. They get a little bit beefier, a little bit fuller, almost like a military march, boom, 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 and really fill it out. But the other instruments are also a bit fuller as well. And the voices. Or you could even say, instead of timpani, you could say maybe they're beating on the walls of the submarine. You know, it's a kind of a big bathtub sound. What a fun piece. And I guess you get the idea that I enjoyed it. I enjoy the innocence and the playfulness and the happiness and the imaginativeness and the colorfulness and all that goes with it. I really enjoyed it. It does feel like a children's song. It does feel like, you know, I can't help but think they do more than make it just a children's song. Yes, it feels like a children's song, and I've been saying that, but let me emphasize something else in closing here, and that is that it is so rich. It has so much to enhance it and to fill it out and to appeal to our adult minds. I'm an adult, and I'm sitting here, and I'm absolutely loving this experience of listening to it, which I don't love listening to the wheels on the bus go round and round. I don't. It's dull, boring, and I would enjoy never hearing that song again in my life. Unless the Beatles handled it. You know, I'm thinking, wouldn't it be fun to make a whole album of classic children's songs, Beatles style? I think that would be fabulous. Well, maybe that's where I should stop, because otherwise I might run away with this idea. But I have to say one more thing, and that is that in this experience of listening to songs off the Revolver album to date, I don't know how many more I have to listen to on this album coming up, but so far I've listened to such wildly varied styles. Everything from some sort of Indian world music to the Taxman Complaint to I guess there was Eleanor Rigby too, and that is such a different and then we have this, and each one of them is so beautiful, so perfect in its own way, and I feel like saying that I think the Beatles have mastered the art of distilling the essence of something down into a very small handful of things. It's so small. It's as if they managed to capture just the essence and hand it to us in this beautiful little package, all wrapped up, perfectly formed, kind of like, well, if I can use the example of children's toys, since we're on that topic here, it's kind of like finding a beautiful to scale, all details in place. Even this little steering wheel works of some little model car, and the doors work, and the wheels turn, and you can open it up. Maybe you can even turn the steering wheel or fold the seat to climb in the back seat, something like that, where they've got everything we need for us to be able to just immerse ourselves and feel all the complex and colorful and intense emotions that belong to that particular experience or scenario. A lot of fun. And I can hardly wait for the next one. I'll see you soon.